so that everybody is aware.
Oh, okay.
Are we still waiting on, Michael said he would be here,
He said he'd
correct?
be here.
Yeah, we've still got a few.
You?
Technically, we started, but, or we're about to start. I'm just preparing.
Yeah, I got that. Did you get that? And there.
There he is.
Expecting anybody else, Jeff, or is this gonna be?
I don't think so.
Remember who else? I saw that anybody else responded.
I heard the door, somebody might be coming in.
Okay, let's go ahead and call the meeting to order then. Jeff, whoops, we do have one more.
There she is.
Find my tag, it's in the right place.
All right, do a roll call. Kim Morris,
Here.
Michael Behrman. Here. Sue Stewart,
Here.
John Leo,
Here.
Bob Thomas.
Here.
And I say absent, Kathy Macho.
Here.
All right, we have a quorum.
And so the first item is approval of the minutes from the previous meeting. And I do have a couple of corrections. Does anybody else?
Oh,
I do have one.
good for you.
Michael contacted me and I had spelled his last name wrong, so I've already gone through and corrected that from the copy that you have in front of you. So
Okay.
the final version will have his name
I'm so
corrected.
sorry. What I had was the first date on the first sentence says November 9, 2022. Kristen McDonald called the meeting to order.
Thank you. Wow, I completely missed
And then in number 2, it said draft minutes of Wednesday, July 13 were discussed, and that should have been the January meeting.
Well, these are the meeting, this is the meeting from January.
Oh, January, it should have been November, I'm sorry, November 9.
Thank you. I swear I fixed that. I apologize.
Thank you for.
And that's all I saw. Anybody else? Okay.
That's what I get for using the previous minutes as a template.
Oh,
for
that's
the
always,
meeting.
that's the risk.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, if there's nothing else, do we have a motion to approve the meeting, the minutes as corrected?
Second.
Second. Okay.
You can do an all in favor.
Oh, all in favor?
All right.
Aye. Opposed? Minutes are approved as corrected.
So the first item on the agenda, at our January meeting, we went through and did our informational stuff. We did our chair, but then we held off and tabled nominating a vice chair. I think the thought was at the time that somebody recommended that Bob Thoma be the vice chair. And so I figured we're having our next meeting, so it's back on the agenda.
Is the floor open to nominations?
I'm sorry.
Is the floor open to
It is,
nominations?
yes.
And nominate Bob Toma to be the vice chair?
I'll second. All four? But.
Do you need an actual
voice-
vote or do you just?
And all in favor, I think. is
All in
fine.
favor, yeah,
Aye.
Aye.
opposed? Congratulations.
So the next item on the agenda, last year, we had a variance request from Mark and Nancy Rondell for 588 East Main Street. And if you remember, that was for an accessory building to be located in the rear yard. They were requesting to exceed the size of the 75% of the principal building and to exceed the height limit of the principal building. We had a review. The board made a motion to grant a variance. They have not had an opportunity to start construction within the 1 year time frame. And the zoning code says that we have an option to extend that upon their request for an additional 1 year. My recommendation at this time would be to approve that extension because of the fact that their plan has not changed. They're submitting a similar site plan or the same site plan to the Planning Commission for special land use review, which is part of the process for guest quarters. And it is the same plan that was submitted to the Zoning Board of Appeals. And the zoning code has not changed since the time that we issued it. So I don't see any reason why we would revisit the issue to grant it. I don't see that any situation has changed. But again, that's your call for discussion here. And Mark and Nancy, do you have any other thoughts that you would like to add to your request?
Well, I think one of the things is we submitted our plans in February to the Planning Commission to get approval for guest quarters because we need to do that inside. And we didn't have a quorum at the Planning Commission in March, so we couldn't vote. We're not going to have one this month.
Oh,
So they're not going to be able to vote this month again. So we are planning on a special meeting in early May. We're working on those dates right now. And that's not the only reason, but it's another reason. So at this point, we're going to be within just about a month of when we have to start before we're going to know if we would do it or not. Because if we didn't get guest quarter approval, we're not going to build it. It wouldn't make sense. So that's just another part of the piece. And I wrote a letter to Jeff. I don't know if you included that in your packet to them or not. We didn't. But we've covered the things. That was one of the things, and some of the other issues. Sorry. Is there anything else, Mark? I think that
I think,
it's pretty straightforward.
and the
So-
code allows for one extension.
Yes,
One that's-
for another 1 year extension. If they don't, for whatever reason, and it says they have to start their project, and we have interpreted that meaning that they pull their building permits and they start some physical activity at the site within that time frame. It allows for an initial 1 year start with another option for a 1 year extension that you have. If they fail to take action within 1 year, they would need to come back for a follow-up request to review the issue and ask for a variance to be granted.
They would have to resubmit.
They would have to
whatever plan they
resubmit and go
have,
through the
same plan.
whole process.
okay. That was my question.
And Jeff, if they wait until after the planning commission has a chance to meet, our approval would have lapsed and the same thing happens then, they have to start over?
If we don't grant an extension, they could be put in that situation.
Would it be to their advantage to wait until closer to the time the planning commission gives approval before we extend
No,
this?
because the planning commission needs the
Oh, this
ZBA's
has to be in
approval
place
to go.
before
Yeah.
that. Got
This-
it, okay.
Yeah,
Part of
Get
the,
them in the right order.
yeah, the ZBA action needs to take place before the planning commission because part of the planning commission's review is that they meet the zoning code requirements. And without the ZBA's granting of a variance, they wouldn't meet that requirement and it would unfortunately get denied. So that's why the ZBA met on this issue prior to going to the planning commission.
So they need to pull permits. They need to start. Now, once they have started, there's no clock.
Right. Their next operation or their next thing on their agenda is to get planning commission approval. Once they do that, then they can go forward and they can get their whatever permits they need from the building department and their zoning permit, and then progress with, the start of their project. Yeah.
Bob, did you have a comment?
I did. Couldn't there be an extension on this because it's not their fault that the city, planning commission, whomever, isn't up to speed and isn't having meetings.
Well, we don't have enough of a quorum.
No, that's a great reason that they have for the granting of a variance. We've, other reasons that we've had from people with these last couple of years, it's been difficult to get people to work on projects, to find,
Yep.
people to draw up plans. A lot of people are very busy. It's also, we had another project, I think, that went to the planning commission for an ask for an extension where they had everything lined up, but building materials weren't available. They couldn't get windows or something. So, and I don't think that we have very strong guidelines of reasons that we would or would not grant a variance, or an extension. So I think you have some leeway.
But that's certainly a component.
Absolutely.
I do have a question. Bob, are you,
Why are you sitting there?
are you recusing yourself?
From this meeting,
From-
yes.
No, you don't need to, Bob. You've already taken action on this topic at this meeting. So you're able to continue to take action. The issue I think that Bob is touching on is because he's on both the zoning board of appeals and the planning commission, because he's taken action on this project, there's language in the zoning enabling act that says that he can't take action also at the planning commission level. We do have a question into Jim Raymer with that to the extent of how that works with the issue.
So Bob can take action and vote on this extension.
Yes,
Okay, so
Yeah.
my vote's not needed then.
right.
I'm an alternate. Okay,
I see. So you
that's
have,
all I wanted to know.
It's all about me.
so I have just a question. If the extension is granted, does it start from June 8th, from the original date, which was the date you guys did it last year?
I think it would be from the date that
Original thing?
from the date that they granted. So from this meeting, it would be a 1-year extension.
Okay. Even though the other one hasn't run out till June 8th.
Oh,
So that might be a reason to wait.
Why would it be an extension from today rather
Yeah.
than your extension from June 8th?
I don't understand.
It would make sense that it would be, they have a year
Yeah.
based on our approval. The extension, it would make sense that it would be an
I guess-
additional year.
I guess let's just make sure, if that's what you would like to do, let's make sure and word the motion that way, that it's a 1-year extension starting on
The original.
The expiration
the
of the
expiration of
original.
the other, to make sure we word it
Yes.
right. I'm not positive if that's how it works or not, but we can certainly
Well,
try.
It's kind of like the other questions that are being asked about recusing and voting and all that. It's good to know what
Yeah.
we can't, or should do.
That's a good question.
But the logic would dictate it's an extension to
From
a
the-
variance that's already been given, so it would be another year after that.
Make sure that the motion is worded that way. Let's start there. I think would probably be good.
Well, I would make a motion that we grant an extension on that property effective the expiration date of the original grant.
Second,
I'll second.
all in favor?
I,
Aye.
yeah.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. Thanks. Thanks, Eliza.
Go grab a shovel, Mark, you gotta start digging.
Oh, would you?
My daughter's house.
Gotta get that permit first.
I want to see some work.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
So the last item on the agenda, we started a review of the bylaws at our January meeting. We found a couple things that needed to be cleared up there. Also, Jim Raymer had some recommendations. The zoning enabling act was updated with some further language, and so he's made some suggestions for modifications
Right.
to our language based on that. And he had an email kind of describing some of those changes. In the packet was a clean copy of the new bylaws as well as a red line version, so that you could specifically see what language was changed and added. I think the only thing in addition to that, the changes that he proposed, we noted that historically we have had our informational meeting at the beginning of the year in January. And there's language that was in the bylaws that stated that we, I think Michael pointed it out, that we elect our chairs in January or June or July.
June.
And so we have made that change to be in January.
I have a question.
Mhm.
Why is the adoption date in February?
Because we originally had our, and that's something that we will adjust and change. Originally, we talked about this at our January meeting. I gave the information to Jim Raymer to draft up the new version. He made the assumption that we would come back and meet in February. With everything else going on and no other actionable items, we didn't have a February meeting. So we will, if we adopt this today, we will change that date from adopted February 8th to adopted April 12th.
I called Jeff with the same question, and he pointed out that Jim's email is
It's
dated
dated.
January,
Uh-huh,
Yeah,
with the expectation that it would be done in February.
got it. Fun with
I had the
dates,
same, what does this mean?
tonight's theme.
has everybody had an opportunity to review and does anybody have any questions?
And those,
I don't have any questions.
those seemed like housekeeping, most of what was in there, you know, I mean, pretty,
Yeah, there's no substantive change. Really.
I didn't think so.
So we need a motion to approve the changes.
I would make
Motion
a
to
motion
adopt
to
the-
adopt the changes as per our discussion date and Jim's suggestion.
Of the bylaw.
Correct.
Second? Second.
You can, yeah, you can second, Ken. And let's do a roll call on this one.
Oh, sure, that sounds good.
All right, we'll start with Kathy Macho.
Yes,
Bob Thomo,
Yes.
John Leo,
Yes.
Sue Stewart,
Yes,
and Kim Morris.
Yes.
Michael, I didn't ignore you. We need 5 for our quorum or our full members. We'll get you next time.
Good to be in order.
All right, that's all we had on the agenda. Anybody have any member comments or other thoughts or ideas?
do you anticipate having a meeting next month? Do you have any
We have not
insights?
had any submittals, requests for variances at this point, so.
I guess I would have thought we might have had some by now. Summer's coming.
There've been some people that I've talked to with discussions. I think that we may have some coming in sooner or later. I've had a couple people email me asking for copies of the application, so I think we'll probably see some, but at this point, no.
I do have a question.
Yeah,
We also have had this in the past. Does everybody have this?
Oh,
It's a handbook that you passed out once upon a time.
oh,
And it was actually pretty good information for,
Isn't that in the binder that you
think-
give new members?
I think we did that at one point. I don't think we've had any new members since because the RRC committee has talked about, like, to meet some things of creating binders that all new applicants would get.
Right, but even when I started, I got a binder that
I
had.
did too. Yeah, it was
Yeah,
I think I've given
nice.
a lot out. Did I fail
I
to?
got a
don't,
binder too, and I'm pretty sure that's in there.
am I?
It's a handbook, you said, Kim?
Yeah, it's a zoning board of appeals handbook, and there were also copies that I got in mine of the decision matrix.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, I
It's kinda
have
nice to
that.
see I have it.
Maybe I do have it.
I try and put in, there should be a copy of the bylaws. There should be a copy of 2 versions of the decision matrix, one for a dimensional variance request and another one for a use request. And I think we have another in there to determine if somebody is
Has standing.
yeah, if they have standing to make an appeal of a.
agree party.
Agree, yes, thank you. There should also be, I think that handbook was from, we had a class and that handout was something from that. And we certainly will at some point this year, we've talked about making sure that we have sufficient number of like kind of training sessions or seminars. And we'll probably have another one of those and maybe get something more updated, but yes, I try and put together a packet for everybody that,
Now, would these be on the website? Would these be in the documents section?
I don't know. That's a good
would be
question.
good.
That would be good to know, because I would prefer, I'm much better at keeping track of digital documents than paper.
Okay, we can certainly do that. Yeah.
Because I don't have no idea where my binder is.
And I think,
That was a long time ago.
I believe that all of these documents are digital anyway.
Right.
So having someplace on the website that we could put them, yeah.
And that I think does go well with what RRC is doing as far as,
Yes.
easy access to.
Mhm.
Sure.
Okay, I'll make a note of that, yeah, certainly.
Anybody else have anything to discuss?
No,
Meeting's adjourned.
Have the power.
back to the garden.
I have to say something, but the two clocks are not synchronous.